being here. Senator Nelson invited me to bring the subcommittee on Constitution, Civil Rights, and Human Rights of the Senate Judiciary Committee for a hearing in Tampa relative to Senate Bill 1355, the new voting rights law in the state of Florida. The turnout today of interested public members and the testimony of the witnesses indicates that this is not only a critically important issue for the state of Florida, it's an important issue from a national perspective. And the reason I say that is that at the heart of this is a question of a person's right to vote. As I said at the hearing, this is preservative of all other rights. You can rightfully argue that the right to vote is the most important right we have in America because all of the rights flow from it. Serious questions have been raised about this new law in Florida and whether it will limit the opportunity to vote or create undue hardship on Floridians who should be allowed to vote, have every legal right to vote. The testimony we received today was clear. From the election officials, I asked them directly, was there any evidence of voter fraud that would lead the legislature and governor to change the law as they've changed it? And the answer was no. I then asked whether or not this would create a hardship on those who were trying to vote. And the answer is clearly yes. Hardship in terms of their opportunity to vote, to register, where they can register, and whether or not their votes are going to be counted. And unfortunately, an undue hardship on minority populations in Florida, Hispanics and African Americans. It is clear, the evidence from Professor Smith was just as clear as could be, that early voting is critically important for most Floridians, but especially so for minorities, Hispanics, and African Americans. And the elimination of Sunday voting will have a dramatic negative impact on the availability of voting opportunities for these two minority groups. Now, we, of course, will consider this issue in Washington and the impact it will have on the future of the Voting Rights Act. In the meantime, the specific law will be considered by the courts as well as the Department of Justice. There is little time left. It is unfortunate that the governor of Florida did not accept my invitation to come to this hearing. I would have liked to heard his side of the story, his defense of this law. But absent that, I thought the testimony brought out today was clear and unequivocal that Senate Bill 1355 is going to create an undue hardship on minority voters in the state of Florida, in addition to the elderly, poor, and rural voters who will also be disadvantaged by it. Senator Nelson.
In Florida, of all places, after what we went through in the presidential election of 2000, it is unbelievable that in the year 2012, our ability to express ourselves in a free access to the ballot box would be constrained. With what we went through in 2000, we ought to be making it easier to cast our ballot and easier to register to vote. And we're seeing the law is enacted just to do the opposite. That has no place in a vibrant democracy like the United States. And I'm hopeful that this hearing, along with the ones that the Judiciary Committee has held in Washington, is going to raise the level of this issue. In all of the commentary that's been made, a new point was raised today. Look at the disproportionate amount of a political party that votes early by voting by absentee ballot as compared to the early voting by going down to an early voting place. And just another statistic has been brought out in this hearing today to clearly underscore what apparently was the intent of the Florida legislature signed into law by the governor. This kind of voter suppression has no place in Florida, and it has no place being in the law in America of the year 2012.
Questions?
Senator Nelson, sir. Since you're up for re-election this year, from what we saw today, despite all of the comments by you and by Senator Durbin, it's beginning to look like this law is a way to rally the base of the Democratic Party in Florida, that the level of frustration with this law may actually help Democrats. Is that a possibility? I know that's a political question, but this is about politics.
Well, you know, the basic underlying reason for this hearing is not about politics, Steve. It's about the right to vote. And it's about the right to be able to cast that vote and know that you know it's going to be able to be counted as you intended. Now, what you raise, a matter of politics, is a reasonable question of what was the intent of passing the voter suppression law in the first place. And I think people ought to be outraged. And I don't think a lot of our people understand. As I have gone around in my town hall meetings, when I tell them what this law does, it's a jaw-dropping moment. They can't believe that that's the law.
Senator Nelson, since 2008, 15 states have passed serious changes to their election laws. 11 of the 15 states have Republican control, governor, Senate, and the House. Do you think, and it could be revealed by the importance of bringing the hearing here today, do you think that this is some sort of a master plan by the GOP?
Senator Durbin has held a hearing on this exact issue that you raise and has taken testimony from a number of states. Senator?
Let me just say that you could trace, show me the money, follow the money. Where's it coming from to support these changes in state after state after state? And there is not a universally common source, but a regularly common source foundation that is funding this effort in the states. I think there's a clear political agenda behind it. It doesn't explain every change in voting law in every state, but when you take a look at the consistent thread, the consistent political thread is to suppress the vote of likely Democratic voters, to make it more difficult for them. The first question I asked the first panel was, is there evidence of voter fraud to justify a change in Florida's law? Neither, they're both Republican supervisors, and neither of them said it was. What motivates this is not clean elections or eliminating fraud, but suppressing the vote and influencing the outcome of elections. That is fundamentally wrong.
Can something really be done by November about this?
Well, let me tell you, the responsibility of the Voting Rights Act in Washington, the Department of Justice does to respond to this.
Senator Durbin, would you go as far as saying that it's a clear-cut Republican strategy to make it very difficult for people who intend to vote Democrat from doing so at a national level?
Let the facts speak for themselves, and the witness testimony today makes it clear that the groups most likely disadvantaged by the change in Florida law are those more likely to vote on the Democratic side.
Senator Durbin, you said you could follow the money to see who was supporting these laws. Who is that money? Who are supporting these laws?
The group is ALEC, is that the name? What does that stand for? I forgot.
American Legislative Exchange.
Council.
Okay, we'll get you some more information on that. I knew it was ALEC, but I couldn't remember what it stood for. I'm sorry.
Okay, and where are the documents showing that it is ALEC?
We can produce the evidence that was brought out in Washington.
Okay.
It's consistent that the state efforts have been supported, not exclusively, but largely by this operation.
Well, Senator, can you tell us what the next step is?
Yes, it's in the courts. That's the next, the courts.
They're in discovery right now.
State courts?
State courts, I believe.
No, this one is in federal court in a 3-judge panel in Washington, and they're in the discovery phase right now.
You know more about that part? Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Is there any, former Congressman Grayson made a statement yesterday that President Obama could stop this. What is it the president could do, should do, might do to get involved in this?
The Voting Rights Act gives the Department of Justice authority to review state laws relative to voting. to determine whether they're consistent with the Voting Rights Act. So if that's the point that he's making, there's validity there. And clearly it has to be done on a timely basis if it's going to have an impact on this election.
And do you think that'll be something he will do, or he won't get involved because he's...
I can't speak for the administration on this, but I would say that I don't know how much we know about whether the Department of Justice is reviewing. There are a lot of laws that they would review under the Voting Rights Act. I can't say specifically what they're doing with Florida law.
I think this isn't about politics, but having this, a few days before the Republican primary takes some spotlight from the Republicans going through Florida.
Is it possible to take some spotlight from the Republicans in Florida? I mean, it appears to me that every time I turn on television that they've been plenty of coverage. So I don't think that we're going to hurt their efforts to draw attention.
But the timing coincidence?
No, not really. I mean, it really wasn't designed to be before the primary, I'll be honest with you. Bill and I have been trying to work out a date that was good for both of our schedules.
Senator Durbin, what does it say about our country, the United States, that in 2012 we're passing laws that are disenfranchising African-American voters? I mean, given the history of the African-American experience in the United States, how can it be that in the United States where we have laws that are targeting the disenfranchisement of black voters?
That's a very question that I posed over and over to these panels. I can't understand it. Listen, I've been candidates in a lot of elections, and I lost a few along the way, okay? And I always felt, Durbin, you had your chance. You presented your case to the electorate. They decided, if you respect this system of government, then you respect the voter's decision, even if you don't like it. But when you reach a point where people are not given a chance to participate or reduced opportunity to participate, then this system of government is not working at its best. And that's why I'm here. I'm prepared to accept the outcome of any fair election. What we have to do is create a circumstance where the average voter feels like they have an opportunity, a fair chance to express themselves at the ballot box. And look at history. Whether we're talking about women or African Americans or any other group that's been non-property holders going back to the earliest days. I mean, when you're looking at those groups, over time, we have had to fight to expand the franchise, the right to vote in America. I'm proud that we have. Let's not go backwards.
We're also
Senator,
looking at the...
go
ahead.
Are you feeling optimistic that the Department of Justice and the District Court are going to be able to push back in Florida and nationally?
I just don't know. I don't want to speak for them because I don't have any particular insight.
Senator, getting back to ALEC for a minute, other than the photo ID template, are you aware of any other templates that they've written that may have affected Florida or any other states?
I'm not, as I stand here, but we'd like to get you some more information if we could.
And we can get that right afterwards, or?
Well, we'll try to come up with that. I don't know if it's...
Well, we can do a kind of little...
I'll see you right after.
Okay.
One last question. An issue you guys didn't discuss today was felon disenfranchisement. Former felons and the extension of sentences here in Florida, in particular for people who have served crimes, and the impact that has on black and Hispanic voters disproportionately. I was wondering if that's a topic that you plan on looking at, if it's something you're going to explore, if you're aware of.
I think I should.
When I was a member of the state cabinet as the state treasurer and insurance commissioner, we sat as the state clemency board. And we were operating under state law that in order to restore one's rights, you had to have the clemency board actually restore those rights. The right to hunt, the right to vote. Since then, under a different administration, those laws have been relaxed. And now I understand there's attempts to constrict those rights again. I can't tell you that because I'm not at the state cabinet level, but I remember so well sitting as the clemency board wondering when someone has done their time and they've made amends for their crime and are integrated back into society, is that not the time that they ought to have their voting rights restored? And a subsequent cabinet decided in Florida, yes. I think we're seeing it go back the other way now.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Senator Nelson.
Yes, sir.